Hello, everybody. I want to have a mystical conversation with you all, the kind where we lose ourselves in the wonders of divine mysteries, share dreams from the other side, intuitive nudgings, and soul mission yearnings. This kind of conversation, in my opinion, is the most important heart-opening talks we can ever have because we're lifting up from the human ego story that is tough. It's tough down here on planet Earth. I think we can all agree on that. And so when we lift up above it and get more of that wisdom from the soul, from the higher consciousness, it opens our heart. It illuminates our pain as actually something that's helping us, something that's serving our growth. So I'm Sue Frederick. I'm the author of 8 books, including Through a Divine Lens, Bridges to Heaven, True Stories of Loved Ones on the Other Side, and I See Your Dream Job. I'm a lifelong intuitive, a master numerologist, an ordained unity minister, woohoo, and a soul regression therapist. So if you want to know more about my work, you can go to SueFrederick.com. But I am so excited to introduce our guest today, who you're going to love. I met her exactly a year ago at almost on this exact date. Her name is Jane Asher, and she is the author of this amazing book called The Next Room, which I urge you to go and get. You can get it probably on Amazon and on tons of other websites, but it's really an important story for everyone. So in her book, well, let me back up and tell you more about Jane. She had a long, successful career in media and in the music industry, most notably at major radio stations in San Diego and Santa Barbara, and at Virgin Records based out of Chicago. Today, she interviews professionals and practitioners from diverse backgrounds about death, dying, grief, beliefs, afterlife, and cultural traditions surrounding the journey we all must ultimately make. The show airs across 11 platforms and has connected her with extraordinary people throughout the world. The Next Room is also the official podcast, that's her podcast, The Next Room, of the Beautiful Dying Expo. So this book that she's going to talk about is a story transcending space and time of her relationship with her mother that grew stronger through death. You got to love that. And it was written together with her mom. And her mother gives her lessons on forgiveness, grief, grace, gratitude, and the limitless love of God. Beautiful, Jane. Say hello.
Thank you. Wow, that's quite an introduction. I am very blessed to be here. And wow, what a cool, I did not realize that we met only a year ago, because for me, it feels like I've known you several lifetimes.
I know we have.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Sue, for having me on. It's always fun for me to be on the flip side of the microphone. I'm always interviewing people, but I find it very enriching to be able to be on this side of it and actually tell my story. So I appreciate the opportunity to do so today.
So I wanted to ask you, your mom transitioned September 31st, 2010. Is that correct?
That's right.
First of all, explain how that could even be a day. Tell that story first, because I grew up with September, 30 days has September.
Exactly. 30 days hath September, right? So just a really bizarre is that she actually crossed on October 1st. But when I was a young woman in my 20s and I left Michigan, I'm the baby of 6. She had gifted me a Hallmark calendar with all the little boxes with this is Lynn's birthday, Dad's birthday, anniversaries. And then every year at Christmas, I would get the new calendar. And she just did it for me over and over again. And it just became our thing. And I loved it. I was the only one that moved out of Michigan so long ago and moved to California. So that year, she had given me the calendar that would have been Christmas of 2009. And of course, no one noticed that Hallmark made a major boo-boo that year on my calendar, and they added an extra day to September, September
Wow.
31st. So, you know, I get the call from Michigan from my big sister that mom had died and, you know, made this guttural noise I've never made before and started screaming. And then immediately, I think I must have just went into crazy grief lockdown, got to get home brain, grabbed the calendar off the back of the door, and I'm calling Delta and I'm like, okay, all right. Her funeral's on the 3rd. She died on the 31st. Okay, today's the 31st. And they're like, ma'am, there's no September 31st. I'm like, yes, there is. It's right here on my calendar. My mother gave me this calendar. She died today, the 31st. And that's how it all kind of started. And
Because that
my
is a
husband,
sign, right?
I
I mean,
know, I
that's
know. And
a
my
sign
husband always
from
said, you know,
her. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, that you know, that she didn't really die.
Yes.
That this new day was created in this time-space continuum so that I would know that she would always be with me. And
And
it's
that
always
she
just
would
this,
give you that calendar that you
yeah,
could keep all that time. And then
yep,
right when she crosses and you're in panic mode to try to get home and you pull that calendar down, you're
yeah,
looking at a day that doesn't exist. So all of
exactly.
those people out there who love these ideas and signs that are departed are always, I even believe that's a sign from your mom
Oh
that her
yeah,
soul knew this would be the day that she would exit, because I believe we have pre-planned exit points in our lives. Her soul knew it. And so her soul made her conscious mind give you that calendar and write all those notes in it so that
yeah,
your first opening to the mystery of all of this would be that she crossed over on a day that doesn't exist.
I know. Yeah, and that started, you know, that became like a blog post, and eventually it ended up a chapter in the book. So yeah, it was the very first day that I had, I would say, my first mystical happening surrounding her and surrounding her, you know, leaving her earthly vessel and moving on to the next room. So
And
yeah.
then what happened? What was your next sign?
Oh boy. Well, I have been talking to people that have crossed ever since I was a little girl. I didn't think there was anything weird or wrong about it. It was just who I am. I'm a curious girl. My mother fed those passions. I read all the time. I would try to move things with my mind when I was little. Um, and and it was cool. She didn't think I was odd or peculiar. I'm just baby Jane, right? And I'm very curious. So immediately I started speaking to her. I did not think it was odd at all. I was having full conversations with her every single morning. I have this little beautiful gold kind of tea light holder. And then I have this picture of her in a stained glass that it's hanging right in the kitchen. And I would come out every single morning and light her candle and say, good morning, mommy. You
Oh,
know, what are we going to talk about today? Or I would just, you know, ask her different questions, or I'd tell her I had to bake a cake for my kid's birthday and that I'd really appreciate some of her baking expertise because I am not a baker. I didn't get the baking gene. My other sisters did. It eluded me.
mhm,
But so I started talking to her right away, and shortly after she crossed, I started finding dimes, and
mm,
I mean an abundance, and they were everywhere. In our church parking lot, coming out of Target. And it was usually when I was thinking about her, and I didn't think or associate the dimes with her, but I was finding them all the time. And I thought I was always a kid that would stop and pick up a dirty penny. And I'm like, cool, you know, a dime. So I wasn't keeping them or anything, but I thought it was curious. And then I had a session with a medium that came on before Halloween on the radio station I was working at the time in San Diego. And her name's Marissa Ryan. And I wanted to talk to her at length about my mom, but I knew she was there to do a job, so I didn't say anything. At the end of our week, she was, you know, she was connecting our listeners with their loved ones on the other side. It was really good radio. At the end of the week together, Marissa said, Jane, your mother's leaving you dimes. I don't know the significance or what it means. I don't know if she's like, here's a dime, call home. I honestly can't tell you what it means, but just know when you find one that they are from her. So
Wow.
I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so great. So of course I go home, I tell my husband, I tell Betty, I tell Thomas. Pretty soon everybody's finding them all the time.
Oh, that's so
Um,
great.
just in the coolest places too. And so I did not know what happened until I had a very mystical dream. It came flooding back over me, but I didn't remember the dream until later. So my dad's birthday is in February. He loves his birthday. I'm packing up all these goodies. He loves licorice and mother's cookies and cards from everybody in our family, even our big dog, Honey. And I went to Office Depot to ship the package. And I'm standing there and I'm working with Wesley at the counter to ship dad's package. And right at that moment, like this dream recall just like washed over me. And I literally had to hang on because I was like, moving back and forth, like, whoa. And in the recall, my mother was sitting on the edge of my bed. And I propped myself up and I just said, Mom, what is the deal with the dimes? And she just said, I like to see you smile.
Oh.
And there it was. And it was so simplistic but so beautiful. It wasn't this big holy grail thing. It was just so pure and so her.
Mhm.
And so I was so happy. So I finished my transaction, mail my dad's box off to him. And as I go to leave Office Depot, I spin around and I kid you not, down at the toe of, I think it was my right shoe, one shiny dime. I bent down, I picked it up. I'm talking to my mother the whole way out of the store and laughing and like, oh my gosh, Mom. And I'm sure everybody thought, oh my God, get a hold of the crazy woman talking to the dime on the way out of the store.
There's so
It,
many things I love about your story, Jane. And one of them is, and I think this is what I know that other listeners, because I work with grieving clients every day in my practice. And so many of them, especially grieving moms, because it is such painful loss,
yeah.
struggle to trust the signs
Mm,
that they're getting. And
mm-hmm.
and I think one of the answers of, how do I know it's my loved one, you've addressed by simply saying, you just wake up and talk to her,
Yes,
you just trust that that conversation is happening and it's with her. And that's like giving a green light to spirit, saying, I'm
absolutely.
open. I hear it. I know what you're
Right.
saying to me. I'm not going to be cynical and doubt it. I'm just going to let it flow. And the fact that you walk out of a store and there's a dime and you're like, thank you, Mom, it's a
Yeah.
joyful energy. And that's really what raises our vibration and helps us feel those spirits, because they're
Mm,
in that divine realm and their energy is much higher than ours is here vibrationally on the earth. And so
right.
we have to raise our energy somewhat in order to really have that clear channel. And you're just laughing and talking to Mom and knowing that it's her. And that's magic. You
Oh, yeah.
figured it out.
Yeah. Yeah, that was really, really fun. And I continue to get them. I actually have a container here that I got over in Borneo. I mean, I have them from everywhere on the planet.
Wow.
I mean, when we went traveling there was, in London, there was a 10 pence. In Paris, there was a 10-cent euro. I mean, and before we left to go traveling, I'm thinking about her. I'm like, I'm got to get on this plane and travel abroad. And I wonder if she's going to go with me. And the night before, sure enough, walking into a liquor store to pick up a lottery ticket for my brother-in-law, there's one dime right as I was walking into the liquor store. So just crazy cool stuff. And I don't get them all the time now. I don't know if I'm just not even paying attention, but occasionally now that we're talking about it, I will get one probably this week,
Yeah, you
and
definitely
it
will.
always makes me smile. And that's what I love about it, is just so simplistic and so lovely, the message attached to it.
Yeah.
And
So Jane,
yeah.
tell us about how you then started writing this amazing book, the next one.
Oh,
How did
I
that unfold?
Sue, I was in such deep grief. I mean, I had never lost anyone that I was that close to. I'm the baby of 6, and all I can explain it as is that my entire life, I felt like I was her mom. If you see any pictures of us, I'm always have my arms draped around her neck. I would rub her back at night. I would brush her hair. It just gave me absolute joy to take care of her. And throughout, when she was having some issues with her heart, I'm in Michigan, but I was back. I saw my mother for, I think I counted 7 months in a row. I was back and forth. And I'm so grateful that I just didn't I chose to afford it instead of like, oh, that's expensive. I was like, no, I have to be with her. And so I just was absolutely devastated when she left, and I didn't know what to do. So I started parking a lot of my grief on Facebook. A lot of people do this, but I started a Facebook page called With Love and God's Blessings, because Mother would sign every card. Because I'm this kid out in California, I was on the fortunate receiving end of all of these love letters. I mean, I have just volumes of love letters from my mother. And the other kids, they actually got to sit with her and have coffee in her living room a lot more often. So she didn't write them. She would send them birthday cards and things. But so I built this Facebook page, did not ask anyone to join it at all. It was just private for me. But people, I think there might be 40 people on that page. But I started just writing. I started posting pictures to her. And on Mother's Day, I would write a love letter. And on her birthday, I would tell her. And then when Christmas would roll around, I would tell her the things I loved about her and why she made Christmas so magical. And so that's kind of where it started there. And then I started journaling. And then I kept telling everybody I was writing a book and I got a writing coach, but I wasn't. I was just talking about it. But I had all these pieces of it. And then when 2020 rolled around and the rug got pulled out and we were told we couldn't go anywhere and couldn't go back to Michigan to see my family, I lost a big client. I was doing some social media and I went to my husband. I said, what the heck am I going to do? How am I going to make money? And he said, don't worry about that. You're going to write your flipping book.
Wow.
It's time. And so I have this box called the Angel Box, and I had a journal from her time in the hospital, and I had all these love letters, and I had the Facebook page, and I just started, it was like a puzzle. It was scattered across, I think at that time, 2 laptops, probably 10 different journals, Facebook posts, personal letters. And I started kind of just piecing it all together and actually opened up a Word document and I started writing. And every day I sat out here, I was obsessed. First, I would go on a meditative walk and I would open up to receive and I would talk to her and I'd say, okay, I need your help. I don't know. I don't know how to do this. I've never written a book before. And this story is not going to be for everyone. There are people that are going to say it's a bunch of hooey, whatever, and that's fine. And so that's kind of how it all got going. And then
how did you come up with the name The Next Room?
That's my buddy right up there, Budge. I have a very dear friend of mine crossed. Oh boy, Budgie, how old were you? 58, I think, 57, 58, complications from lupus. Budge, super cool, inspirational girl. And we would always have these really metaphysical, spiritual chats. And she was raised Catholic. I was raised Lutheran, but we both kind of felt there was a grander, bigger, meaningful purpose, not just the religious side of it. And so she once said to me in one of our conversations, Janie, I think when we die, we're here and then we're just here in the next room. And I was like, oh, Budge, I love that. If you don't mind, I'm going to use that for a podcast in my future forthcoming book that I told everybody I was writing. And so she gets the credit 100%. And then, what's great is there's an old poem that was written called let's see, it's in the book here somewhere.
Yeah, I remember reading that in the book.
Yeah, it's great. Henry David Scott, I think. Is that
Yeah,
Holland?
I should have
Henry David
marked.
Holland. Here it is. It's called Death is Nothing at All.
Oh, that's what it is. Yeah. Yeah.
It's Henry Scott Holland. Death is Nothing at All. And it's really quite famous and it's read at a bunch of funerals. But I love it because it says, death is nothing at all. It does not count. I've only slipped away into the next room. So I just love that. I'm like, wow, it just made sense to me.
And
So,
for the listeners, there's so much beauty in this quote. I just want to make sure everyone knows it's from Henry Scott Holland. The name of it is Death is Nothing at All. And he goes on for this beautiful long paragraph. And I just want to read a few of these sentences to people because it's so beautiful. He writes, play, smile, think of me, pray for me. Let my name be ever the household word that it always was. Let it be spoken without an effort, without the ghost of a shadow upon it. Life means all that it ever meant. It is the same as it ever was. I say
isn't
that
it
to
great?
everybody who's grieving. Shout their names out loud, speak about them as if they're still here, because they are more alive than we are. And we're the ones who are in the dense energy of this physical earthly realm. They're in the full conscious awakening luminous realms of the divine. So we need to act like we know they're doing great, because they're doing way better than us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No doubt about it.
So you write in this book, next page, you ask your mom, well, here's what I love about this book so much. Your mom is like a spiritual teacher extraordinaire. And in this book, so for example, here's an example. You ask her the question, you say, what do you recommend we do each day to become more aware? And your mother writes through you, meditate, or if that is not something you are comfortable with or knowledgeable about doing, just sit quietly and focus on breathing deliberately. And then it goes on, and she gives you all these instructions about how to connect. She says prayer is when we talk to God. Meditation is when God speaks to us. I totally agree with all of that. So I want to know, is this who your mom was when she was here? Like, tell us how she was when she was in the physical body.
Boy, everybody loved her. She was a force to be reckoned with. And, she had a bunch of nicknames. Like my dad would call her Sarge because she ran our family like a sergeant runs his platoon. Or she would read all the time. And so, like, if anybody had an ailment, he would call her Doc because she would go, oh, well, you blah, 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 blah. So she just was very, she was spirited and fun and just loved to have a good time. And she was so grateful for like the littlest things. Like if you gave her one of those flossers that was individual in a little package, she would just light up. She was always so grateful for any little thing. She was adorable, but also very strong and very, very into her faith. She was a good Lutheran girl, and she and my dad both would say, you don't go to church, your week doesn't go right. And, so we were raised very much in that, in Christianity, and it was lovely, but they were also very, I would say they were very open to the different types of things that I was curious about. And I would always talk to them about, bigger picture things. And they were very open to Jane's interesting ideas once I got out to California. So they were good about that.
I just want to interject in here to my numerology peeps who are listening. Jane is a Pisces 11 master soul. And those of you who follow my numerology work, it's in all my books and in my sessions with clients. Pisces 11 is a highly evolved soul. The combination of Pisces, which is pure intuitive connection to the highest realms, can also be a challenge because it can make us very sensitive and very emotional. And she's on the 11 path, which is, again, is a very sensitive feeling path that has a pure channel, again, to the highest realms for artistic inspiration, like writing, for music. It's no surprise you have this beautiful, compelling voice. You know, you are here to be one of those who stands up and says, think of it this way, people, let's love each other and heal the
Mm,
world.
mm,
So the other interesting thing about your path is that we have these 9-year reinvention cycles, all of us do. And you're currently in what's called in numerology a 9 personal year, the end of a cycle.
mm,
And I always work, I work with so many clients, and often they come to me saying, everything feels like it's changing in my life and I don't know why. And I'll go and look and I'll go, oh, you're in a 9-year. Don't worry. It's like cleaning out the closet. Just let anything go that doesn't feel right. And all the right stuff for your new phase of your life and work will come pouring into your life. Now, before we went on air, you started telling me about this amazing opportunity that came to you magically about going to the Congo to do your mission work. Do you want to talk
mhm.
about this? And do you see that as part of this new direction, new phase of your life?
Wow. Yeah, I'm really fortunate. I don't know what it is exactly, Sue, but ever since I was just a young child, I was talking about traveling and that I needed to see the planet. And I don't mean like these very expensive,
Cruises.
beautiful yeah, not
Yeah.
vacations. I like to get down and get dirty with it. And I like to meet people that I can possibly help and help maybe raise a village. It's sort of like if you help a woman helps her family, and then once she helps the family, she helps the village, and once she helps the village, and onward and so forth. So yeah, I've been very fortunate, and I know that a lot of the mission work started after my mother left,
Mm.
and she used to always say to me, I want to see the world through your eyes.
Oh.
And now I know what she means by that. She did not mean on this side. She knew I was going to travel and
Mhm.
do some traveling when I was here. But now that she's in the next room, I really feel her with me on these amazing missions. So I have one coming up in 2023, where I'm going to go to the Congo. And I'm going to work with a wonderful nonprofit and work with mostly women and children. And it's really cool. We do some microcredit loans, and it's not, for like next to nothing. I mean, you think $600, you can literally support a woman for a full year and help her rise up out of poverty. It's really quite beautiful. So I'm
Jane, this
excited.
is so moving, and it is so perfect for who you are as a
Yeah.
highly evolved Pisces 11 soul. And when we look at the long story of your life here on Earth, you were kind of famous in your radio career, you really were. And you were like rock and roll famous back in those days. You and I have laughed about that before
Yeah.
privately. And then your mother kind of, pulls the veil away and shows you this deeper meaning of life and death. And so you
Yeah.
go all in with that, and you write this amazing book, The Next Room, and you do this amazing podcast that is not mine, but your podcast called The Next Room, that has taken off and has spread all over the world, talking about these subjects, about what happens when we die. How do we communicate with our departed? But now you're entering a new cycle in 2023. And I feel that your mom is pulling you out in the world to be doing this amazing work through mission, through religion and church, whatever title, it doesn't even matter, because you're going to help women especially. And somewhere in that journey, you will have opportunity to do readings to help people to see their spirit and talk to them about that. because that is who you are.
Mm.
Stay open to it.
Mm-hmm.
What's your
That's
next
good.
book, by the way?
That's interesting. Same conversation this morning with my husband after I was telling him that I needed to pivot, for lack of a better term. He said, you need to write. So
Yes.
I have actually 3 books that I've started. I have a really cool metaphysical, fun novel with
Mm.
a young protagonist. And she has a connection to her grandfather, but they never met because he was actually on the day Penelope was born. Benjamin left. So as he was taking his last breath and leaving,
Mm.
she was taking her first breath. But they can communicate with one another, and
Beautiful.
that's the whole story. And it skips generations. So I've got about 11 chapters written in that one. So that'll be fun to kind of get me out of
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
serious head. And then I am writing the next room too, which I've already started.
Ooh.
And mom has said, she said, depending on how busy you get. And I'm like, what is she talking about? I'm not busy. I have a podcast, big deal. Well, now I know what she's talking about. So the next room too. And then I'm actually doing a project with a friend of mine that I love. It's a daily reader, and it's
Mm.
1 word per day. And it's my reflection in a story surrounding that word. And
Mhm.
it'll be, 365. And then there will be space for the person who, whomever buys the book can
Mhm.
write their feelings and reflections on what that word means to them and what it invokes. And it's not all happiness. It's
Yeah.
really just to pull things out of people, just 1 word, because words are so powerful. So that one's about 3/4 of the way done because I started, it obviously needs editing and all of that, but it's very fun. And I write from a perspective of each word to me is a story.
Mm.
That's how I write.
Mhm. So
It'll be
I
fun.
think your gift as a radio broadcaster, interviewer, podcaster is so strong in this lifetime, and nothing is
Mm.
by accident. Everything is on purpose, that I could imagine you traveling the world with your mission work and actually interviewing people about their experience with life and death and what they believe in, and if they've heard from departed spirits or what their culture teaches them about that, and
Mhm.
making that part of either your next podcast or this one. Because I think one of the things that happens with death and grief, especially in our country here, is that a certain kind of Christian belief has taught so many people that they're not supposed to communicate with their departed because it's quote unquote the work of the devil, which I hate even saying those words. They're so wrong, so crazy. Because
Archaic.
yeah, God is a loving God. This is a consciousness world of all good, all God. And so how could we possibly believe that when our departed cross over and they start coming back to talk to us, that we shouldn't connect to them? That's just crazy human being thinking right there. Meanwhile, when people really come up and start studying, how do other cultures look at life and death?
Mm.
Dia de los Muertos from
Beautiful.
Mexico, such a beautiful, where they honor their departed, and especially say the veil is thin on certain days, and
Mhm.
I would be fascinated to know how people in the Congo look at life and death and how they define that and what their experiences are, because the more we can widen our understanding of this subject of death, the more it opens our minds and hearts to experience it in a new way.
Well said. And that is so true. I have found that Americans are really buttoned down
No
about
kidding.
death.
No
And to
kidding.
me, my kids are always like, again, mom, again with the death chat. Um, yeah, I love it. Death is dinner conversation. I think it allows us to live more richly
Yeah.
when, I mean, when I wake up, the first thought is, oh, cool, I'm still here. Thank you. All right, let's go. Got another day on this side to be in this human body and
Right.
to learn more. And I love what you said about, I feel like that about our vibration. We're so dense. So when we vibrate up,
Mhm.
and then our loved ones can maybe slow down their vibration,
Right,
then we
right.
can really connect in that
That's right.
space.
That's right.
So I love that. But I wrote here, well, you can't see it, but I wrote travel mic and circled it because I thought I need to get one before I go to the Congo, because I love that idea to
You do.
interview. I love that idea to interview, and I'm going to get equipped to take that with me and do that while I'm there. That's a
Because,
brilliant idea. Thank you.
every gift that we have is on purpose. And even
Oh
if
yeah.
we don't, fully use it at one phase in our life, it'll circle back around and
Right.
ask us. And the fact that you're starting a new cycle in your numerological journey, and that you have this amazing gift of interview. If you guys need to go listen to her podcast, it's called The Next Room Podcast. Where can they find your podcast, Jane?
They're all over. I mean, wherever you get your favorite podcasts. I mean, if you like Google, it's on Amazon, it's Spotify, it's Apple Podcasts,
There you go.
and just subscribe, which really helps me. But it's cool. This network that I'm with right now, I can go into the back end and I can see who's listening, who's downloading, where on the planet. Like, I've got a huge pocket in Sydney, Australia.
Well, go to Sydney and interview them about
I
what they
know.
believe in about death and what their
I know.
experiences are.
It's really fun. And then in the United States, I found out, this is great. I found out that Travelers Rest, South Carolina, I
Wow.
didn't even know what Travelers Rest was. Well, now I know it's this really cool spiritual spot in South
Oh
Carolina.
gosh.
And they love the next room. Honolulu loves the next room.
Wow.
Minneapolis loves the next room. I mean, it's cool because it shows you the region and it shows you exactly how many listeners you have, and it's wild. I love it. Like, I spent a lot of time on the map to go, I guess I can go travel to these places. It's
That's
going to
so
be a lot of
great.
fun. I know. I love it.
Oh, Jane, I just love you. I love talking to you.
Thank
So, is
you.
there anything else you would like to say to our listeners, in particular, if someone is listening who may have just lost a loved one, what would you say to them?
Oh man, just don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to speak to them. And also ask for what it is, ask for a sign, but you don't say what it is specifically, because allow them the pleasure of giving you the sign. But then once you ask and you do receive the sign, you need to believe that that is indeed a sign.
Trust it.
Trust. A lot of people are like, oh, well, butterflies are everywhere. Well, actually, no, they're not. Or, when a hummingbird comes right up to you and sits there and chitter chatters in your face,
Right.
or the dimes, or feathers are great. Or
Right.
my nephew, he just said, Aunt Jane, you're not going to believe this. My mother loved ducks. She just loved them. She just thought they were the cutest little things in the whole wide world. And she had different little figurines and stuff. And my nephew Jason he's a real wilderness guy. He's an arborist. He, manages this huge place back in the Midwest that, does all these cool things with trees and plants. And he went by himself alone in a kayak, and he was out in the middle of this river up in northern Michigan, and there was nothing around. And all of a sudden, there was just these pool of ducks just came, and just this whole little family of ducks. And he goes, I had to tell you, Aunt Jane. He's taking pictures of it, but he was trying to be quiet. And I said, that was your grandmother. And he
That's
was like,
right.
I know.
Oh,
So,
that's so great.
and it's great too. And she told me that whatever, like, at the moment that you're receiving the sign, the person that you are thinking about in that moment, that's who's sending you the sign.
Of course.
It's
Yes.
exactly in that moment. And I love that. And then thank them, say,
Yes.
oh my gosh, Dad, that was really cool. I mean, here's my dad, 6'3", 240. But before he crossed, he and I were getting these spirited conversations. And I said, well, you got to send me a sign once you get to the next room with Mom. And and he joked around, said, what do you think what do you think I'm going to leave before you, kind of thing? Well, ends up he did, because he was 91 and had a peaceful passing. But he said, I'll come back. And he said, I'll be a butterfly. And
Oh,
we laughed and laughed and laughed, because here's this big brute of a
right.
guy,
Right.
big Navy guy. And just that he would be the most delicate little insect floating, we just got the biggest kick out of that. Do you know that butterflies, literally, since he has been gone now 4 years, they are everywhere. They follow me. I have white ones, yellow ones, monarchs, beautiful moth butterflies. And every time I just stop and I'll go, hey, Dad, it's great. And I know he's physically not the butterfly. He is just
Spirit.
manifesting a beautiful spirit sign for me. And he gets a big kick out of it because, it was our joke when he was alive on this side. So, and I would encourage people to do that too. Like, have those conversations. If you're a parent or your grandparent or a favorite aunt or something, it's not weird to talk about, hey, what do you think is going to happen? How do you feel about, crossing into what is next? And let's have those conversations, because then they can, it just makes it so lovely, and it just strips all the fear away, because we just return to love. I mean, this is tough on this side. Earth school is no picnic,
That's right.
being a human and being trapped in your body is not easy. And then once we let go and we're in the next realm, it's really, it's just beautiful, because it's we can't even fathom how beautiful it is, because we have these little pea brains holding us back. We can't even get there.
So Jane, how do listeners contact you? What is your website?
Oh, it's just my name. It's janeasherrainey.com. So Jane, Jane, Asher, Asher, Rainey, my married name, Reaney.com. Go through there. You can send me a message directly through there. Or if you want, email's great. The Next Room with Jane at Gmail. I have the Next Room with Jane on Facebook. Please join us. Very spirited, fun Facebook. I'm there every single day, and I love that community. It's just a bunch of fun people, and we just kind of gather, and it's not all about grief. It's really more about a higher level of consciousness, and about connection, and about afterlife. And I take pieces of the book and put it out there. And then, of course, I'm on Instagram, and I'm on Twitter, and all the usual suspects. So.
All right, everybody. So I hope you all have enjoyed this mystical conversation with amazing Jane Asher and her book, The Next Room. And my name is Sue Frederick, and you can find more about my work at suefrederick.com. And my books are also on Amazon and on my website, Bridges to Heaven, True Stories of Loved Ones on the Other Side. So until we meet again, many, many blessings, and thank you.